It is indeed a matter of immense pleasure and gratitude to especially be welcomed by a school batchmate of mine to this incredible institution. It's going to be a tough ask to follow a session post-lunch, but I'm hoping all of you are geared up to listen to me with much vigor because of what I'm talking about. It's so interesting that conversations are such a fundamental part of our life, yet we have no formal training at any given point in time to actually converse well enough. Yes, we're trained for debates, for elocution, for being a lawyer, for public speaking, yet no training for one-on-one interpersonal conversations, be it in a professional setting or in a personal setting. Let me contextualize this for you. The next time you're talking to a professor or a prospective employer, or even a senior or junior from college, all of those are meaningful conversations. In fact, today, I will end up interacting with several of you. But the harsh truth remains is that I will perhaps only remember maybe one, maybe two of you. And those one or two will be the ones who actually shine in those 1, 2 minute, maybe 20-minute, 30-minute conversations. If you had to venture a guess as to how many conversations do we have in our lifespan, it's 2 lakh. For 2 lakh conversations and no training, it is actually a pity that we don't really understand how to have meaningful conversations. And honestly, I wouldn't have either had I not started a podcast. I started a podcast by sheer virtue of my curiosity of not being able to build a company. I failed miserably. I failed at building a tech company because I was from a business background in Calcutta, and I didn't know any better, to be honest. And at the time, I didn't know IIT alums, other founders, to actually be able to understand how to build a company. So I thought, let me take this quest out there into the world. And I started Indian Silicon Valley. Today, we've recorded over 20,000 minutes of content. And the best way to get better at anything is to just go ahead and practice it. I hear my first episode to date, and it is laughable, but rightly so. I've come so far, and I can only traverse further. I've had the privilege of hosting folks like Nitin Kamath of Zerodha, folks like Sanjeev Bikhchandani of Naukri.com, founders of companies like Make My Trip, Zepto, Boat, Mamaearth. I'm hoping all of you have heard these names. And when you stand in front of them, you can't falter, right? You have to get better at it. And so I hope, as we figure out what we want to do with our conversations, as you take a step back today from the auditorium, you and I can go out better conversationalists. So I'm going to give you a very quick 5-step framework. And if you can apply that, in my opinion, you will be better off. The very quick cheat code is here. A very strong intersection of some of these pointers, depth, attention, and genuine curiosity will get you there. I also want to make this a bit more participative, right? So with every point that I display on the screen, if you can just give me a quick handout if you practice it already, and give me a quick nod if you don't, that will give me a great sense of the room. So here it goes. 1, undivided attention. Now this is a common one, yet I think it is the one we practice the least. What do I mean by that? We are in a world of Instagram Reels, which means every 60 seconds we need a dopamine hit. Unfortunate as it is, that means that every time I'm talking to you, as I in fact talk to you today, right now, you are probably thinking of another friend conversation that you were having, the lunch you had, what you want to do after this talk once I get done. So that means the onus is on me, the communicator, to actually grasp attention. However, as good conversationists, you need to be a better listener. And the rule of thumb is very simple. Don't keep your phones, maintain eye contact, and don't interrupt. You know, the worst thing you can do at a dinner with somebody else is actually keep your phone up on the table and sneak in that notification that pops up on your screen. Because what you've done in that split second is precisely point out that, hey, the living flesh in front of you is not as important, and the digital screen in your pocket is more important than that person. And I can guarantee you in that moment you have lost that person, purely because you have indicated that that person does not matter to you. Transaction. Now, naturally as humans, we're actually very giving. Yet because of the paucity of time, let's say you talk to me, you want a job, you'll probably just get to straight to it. You talk to somebody else, you want to host them on a podcast, I'll probably get to it. However, the worst thing about interactions can actually be you asking me something that I'm not ready to give you because we have barely any trust. And so even if you want something from somebody else, I urge you to figure out how to build trust first and not be transactional. The next time you talk to a prospective employer, don't bring up the job role that you are actually eyeing for. The next time you talk to a senior, don't ask them about the exam that you need help for, because you don't want these relationships to be short-term. Yes, they will answer. Yes, you'll probably get that job, but guess what you won't get? You will not get the opportunity to learn from them, to build a relationship with them for life. So please seek a connection, not a transaction, and give before you ask. This one's my favorite, actually, and I think it is the hardest in practice. You see, being vulnerable requires a lot of courage, a lot of trust, a lot of openness. It is not for the naive. And especially in the world that we are in, people often take advantage of our vulnerabilities. And that's precisely where you have to start. In fact, a very good example of this is very recently, right now, as I was coming on stage, the conversation the two of the other speakers were having involved a very intimate discussion about one of them sharing about their son and interesting stories about their lives which are very personal. That allowed both of them to talk on a deeper level that will go extremely far in building a relationship that is far beyond what a normal, non-vulnerable conversation would entail. Thus, the rule of thumb here is you open up. Don't open up with your largest fears. Don't open up with the worst thing you've done in your life. Tell them about something that you falter on. Give them something that they can relate with. And if you do, I can assure you they will reciprocate. And that will give you a virtuous cycle that you can tag upon so that they share, you share, and everything will be more deep. Because nobody likes a surface level conversation, and if they do, it will definitely not transcend into the next level. This one's the easiest, and I hope all of us can start practicing this every time as we proceed. It includes simple things like me smiling on stage, me interacting with you and saying thank you, me being welcoming, me being open with my hand gestures. It is body language more than the words you speak. You know when you are being welcomed and you know when you're not being. You don't have to be reserved. You just have to give an open space. The very simple formula here: warmth, genuineness, and curiosity. Remember that curiosity is not about just sharing what you have done. True curiosity is about understanding what the other person's doing. And this often transcends itself as you asking meaningful questions to truly dive deeper into somebody's journey. The last one is the most challenging in my opinion, and it's the one that masks itself. We often feel that we are being ourselves, but it is often provided with a mask. In my journey, the first 25 episodes that I hosted, I felt the need to be somebody else, to be an expert. Because every time I was talking to a founder who was at a pedestal, I felt that I was not good enough, and in order to be at their level, I had to pretend, I had to impress. But turns out that to impress, you have to be yourself. Because if you're trying to be somebody else, you will not be able to sustain it. And what people detest more than anything else is a fake person. So if you want to impress, you have to start by being authentic, and you have to be yourself. It took me a while, and it was a guest on the show who said that, Jivraj, remember that you can get all the famous people on the podcast, and people will come to listen to your show for the first time. But why they will stay back is because of who you are, not because of the next guest. And that changed my point of view, and I started owning every piece of conversation on the podcast in the truest sense. And so remember that you may not feel adequate in times where the power dynamic is different between two individuals. But you are who you are, And that individual, if they are on a different pedestal, will respect you for who you are becoming, not where you just are. Now that was the very clear framework of how we can all be great conversationalists. If you had to take back one thing, remember that there are no bad conversations. So all of you are already good. However, it requires one to be supremely intentional to actually go from good to great. And that's the distance we're trying to traverse. And this means you have to be memorable. And so if you can remember this, remember the fact that you can't bypass subject matter expertise. So by the way, if you tagged all of these 5 things well, but you weren't good at what you did, none of this would help. So please get your basics right. Ensure that you are great at what you do. And then, when it comes to conversations, you can imply this framework. And if you had to take back one thing, not the rest of the 5 things that I mentioned, just one, it should be that most conversations are not about you. It's so liberating to know that you don't have to impress, you don't have to put up a face, you don't have to talk about what you're good at. If you naturally extend a curious ear, listen intently, smile, look into somebody's eyes, actually understand what they do, why they do it, I can assure you that you will leave a memorable impression to them. Lastly, as an investor and as a podcaster, I actually converse for a living. And I cannot tell you the joy, the gratitude, the absolute bliss I feel every time I have a conversation. The 2 hours that I'm recording, I am in Zen. There is nothing in the world that can stop me from having that conversation. No news, no notification, nothing that's happening in my life. When I'm listening to a founder pitch to me their company, I am completely immersed. This is the most liberating feeling in the world, and it makes my life so much more eventful because it is filled with intellectual curiosity, stories, and just blissful moments. Conversations may seem like a small step in a large journey, but I can assure you if you center great conversations in your life, it will inevitably be wonderful. Thank you so much.